I have experienced that throughout until my later years in life. So,
Okay, what is your name?
Thomas Ratliff.
We are here at the Ratliff household in Ashland, Kentucky, and we are here to discuss Uncle Thomas's history about his family and his experiences growing up in Appalachia. What are your parents' names?
Joyce and Gordon Ratliff.
What was it like growing up? What was school like when you were younger?
School was much more. I went to a private school, private Christian school. So it was very, very strict. There wasn't, if you had a homework assignment due on Monday and you didn't have it on Monday, it was a 0. You couldn't turn it in on Tuesday for a 5-point reduction. You couldn't turn it in on Wednesday. School was much more strict. And people took up for themselves much more than they do now. Or, and the opposite of that, there was much more bullying growing up. And that's not been that long ago. It's only been, 30 years, how much things had changed. There was a lot of bullying, and school was much harder. The teachers did not give you a break. It was either, no matter what you did, you didn't get any extra credit, no grading on curves. It was tough. School was.
So you believe that Appalachian schools when you were younger were much more involved than they are now?
They were much more strict. I would not say involved. They left it to you to handle your problems socially in school. It was how you dealt with. It was like a preparation for life is the way I see it, compared to today's time where they take all these kids and they're all avoided from all the things that really happen to them in real life. And when they face it in real life, they don't even know they don't know how to handle it. As far as education, I believe teachers, if you needed help, you had to ask for help. And they were good. They helped you. But they did not seek you out to see if you needed help. Like if you had got a bad grade on your test, they didn't ask you why you got a bad grade. Because they just told you there's a test on Friday, you got your notes, and you either did good or bad. It was up to you what you produced. Either you did poorly or you did worse. Today's teachers, I feel, are much more involved, but education, they're too worried more about social issues more than educating the kids, the way I feel. It's a huge difference from my time, today's time, for sure.
How did you get to school every day?
My mother, or I walked elementary school from all the way from 1st to 8th grade. I walked.
How far was school?
It was probably a mile, maybe less than a mile.
Do you feel like you couldn't do that today if you were that age again in 2024?
absolutely not. There's too much homeless. There's too much drugs. The streets are littered with crazy people. So no, I would not let my first grade child walk to school. It would not even cross my mind to allow that.
What did your parents do for work? Or your dad?
My
Or...
dad was a coal miner. He dropped out of 6th grade
Wow.
and went to work in the coal mines.
Do you know where he worked?
He worked he went to work when he left school at a little place called David. It was a little mining camp where they had tokens. They didn't make money. They made tokens, and you had to buy. That money was only good at the coal miners in that community. You couldn't go out of the community and buy anything because you didn't have real money. It's a horrible thing, but.
Do you feel like this contributed to people like miners being localized in one area because they couldn't go out and for work?
It's kind of a they just enslaved their workers. The workers couldn't, there wasn't a Walmart, so, but they had to buy from the mine. The mines owned everything. They owned the store, they owned everything in that community went through the coal mine. So it's not like you got paid $5 at the end of the week. You got 2 silver coins, which wasn't real silver, but they're tokens. And that's how you lived back then.
What coal company did your dad work for?
He's worked for quite a few. He worked for the biggest, probably Pontiki. There was another one, B&D Coal out of Pittsburgh, was a big company. He worked for several different coal companies.
How long did your dad work as a coal miner?
He worked probably, he probably got, I'd say 15, 20 years in the coal mines. And then he worked as a boilermaker as a welder for about 10 years. And then he retired and bought an ambulance business. And that's what he did.
What was living with your mom like? What did she do on a daily basis?
My mom was a homemaker. She didn't even work until she was probably, I'd say she was close to her 50s before she ever worked. My mom was a typical mom for that time. You know, we went to church. We had dinner every night, family dinner. Went to church every Sunday and Wednesday. And it was a strict house, you know. There was rules you had to follow. And if you didn't, you got your ass busted.
Do you know where your parents are from?
I do. My dad was born in a little town called Mousy, Kentucky. It's not too far from where I grew up. It's probably about 30 miles. That'd be southwest of where I grew up. And my mom grew up in Virgie, a place called Virgie, Kentucky. And it's closer to Belfry in the Pike County area is where she grew up.
Also, relating back to mining, in regards to mining, how do you feel that the natural environment has changed over the years, or how mining has affected our mountain ranges?
There's different types of mining. There's strip mining, deep well mining, deep mining. Strip mining is a very corrosive to the natural environment. That's where they strip the hillside, the mountaintops, and they mine smaller seams of coal. Uh, it was, especially in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, during that time range, it was devastating to the environment. And you don't see, there's still a lot of operational mines around, but they're real small, and you don't see the effects of mining like you did, even when I was growing up. Because you'd see a beautiful mountain, and then within 2 weeks, it's completely stripped of all the forestry, the trees and everything. So I noticed it a lot more when I was younger than I do in today's time.
In school, did you ever experience any discrimination based on being Appalachian? Or
No, because we all were Appalachian where we went to, we all were the same. Now, when we went outside, like on field trips and things, you would hear like locals would be like, "Oh, where are you from?" Because they could tell from our accent. But no, I've never faced any discrimination other than they assume you are dumb. The typical Eastern Kentucky Appalachian stereotype is what I think.
do you feel like Appalachian people are accurately represented in media? Like,
No, I absolutely do not, because the number one thing is intelligent, which they are statistically lower than other groups, but they live off of their land. They don't need a Harvard degree to be happy with a 200-acre farm. They don't need any of that stuff. They at if the at the end of time, if the United States collapsed, that's the first place I would go, because they would be able to survive before anyone else could. City folk could not survive. They would wilt and melt within the first week or two. So
do you have any stories or experiences that you would like to share that you feel are important to understanding your family's history or Appalachian culture?
not necessarily stories. I just feel Appalachian people are, I'll say this, until the drug epidemic, which devastated Appalachia area, the people were the hardest workers. They took care of their families. They took great care of their lands. They were just good, kind people. They didn't like outsiders, but they loved everybody on the inside. The people that were from that area. They loved them. But I don't have any major stories to tell.
Do you feel like the influx of drugs and the thievery and crime has made people more distrustful of others and not as welcoming as they once were.
Yeah, absolutely. God's honest truth. We never locked our doors growing up. Our door was never locked. Ever, ever, ever was it ever locked.
That's unfathomable to me.
Yeah, in today's time, it is, and it's not been that long ago. It's only been 30 years ago. That's how quick drugs and, well, there's a lot of contributing factors to the decline of society. Drugs being one of the major ones, though. It devastates a whole community.
Did you ever have a garden, hunt, or farm growing up?
We did garden. Did not have a farm. Helped on a lot of farms. What else did you say? Gardening, farming, and what?
Did you ever hunt?
Oh, hunt? No, I never. I wasn't. I was the only person that I grew up with that did not hunt. Everybody else hunted, but I didn't. So I felt bad for I couldn't kill the animals. Even if I was eating them, I would have a hard time. I would have a hard time doing that. But they didn't hunt for sport, you know. They never hunted for sport. Every one of my friends hunted, and they ate every single thing they hunted. Everything. So
I feel like that's less common where I am. Like, I don't see that when I go out a whole lot.
what is it?
People hunting, talking about hunting.
Yeah, there's a lot of hunters here. A lot. There's a lot of hunters, especially in the Appalachian area. They all, at the very least, squirrel hunt. You know, turkey hunt, squirrel hunt.
I feel like that is something that's deeply ingrained into our culture because it's something that our ancestors relied on a lot.
Yeah, they had to.
Because they didn't have grocery stores or...
Right. So that's what, and today, times get hard. I don't know how to hunt. I mean, I don't know how to hunt. My boys, they don't know how to hunt because I never hunt. Now, we fish quite a bit, but we never hunted. So times get bad. Hope we can live off the fish. The waters aren't polluted.
Do you feel like the waters when you were younger were as polluted as they are today?
No, I feel they were much more polluted back then because of all the government regulations. Those are some of the most important ones. Like we're talking about where we live, where we grew up, all the coal mines. There was no coal slurry ponds. They just run it off into streams. All the backwater, all the backfields, all that sludge, slurry, everything, they just run it right straight through the creek, you know. Now, because I work on the pipeline, and anytime, like if you're crossing a waterway, even if it's just a creek that is an inch or two deep, not even, you know, over your feet, they take so much. They pay, there's so many steps that we got to complete before we can cross a waterway. It's unbelievable. It will add 2 days more to the job, which would take maybe an hour or two to cross a normal creek. It takes us, 2 days because of the regulations, which in turn does make the water much cleaner in today's society, work environment than it did 30 years ago.
I find that interesting because in class, when we were talking about strip mining and mountaintop removal,
Yes.
those little creeks that would be in the middle of a valley
Right.
where the two mountains, they would push that down into the valley. And once that water source became no longer a water source, it wasn't protected. So that was a loophole that they found around it.
Right. But you can't strip mine anymore, though. That's. I'm not saying that you can't strip mine, but with the regulations, it is too expensive to get your work permits for the profits that you're going to make off of the mining project. So strip mining is far less today. I'm talking about coal. Now they might strip mine for other resources. I don't know about I don't know about any of that. But today's water, let me put it this way. All these workers, construction workers, trade workers, the way we are leaving the water source from here forward is much cleaner than the way the people before us left it. Like I was talking about, coal was the worst, especially where I grew up. Where I grew up, there was, there might have been 1,500 people in the whole entire town. 60%, 70% of the males worked in the mines. And there was hundreds of mining companies in that Pike County area. Pike County had more millionaires per square mile than anywhere in the country. That's what they were so proud of that. But they devastated the water supply to all the areas in that area. So, and I'm sure that you're still seeing the effects today, 40 years later. It is, because it gets ingrained into the soil. No matter how many gallons of water pass through that, it takes a long time to rid those chemicals of those water supplies.
What do you feel like the attitude that these coal companies had about their workers? Like, how did they value them?
I would say not. Which time are we talking about? Today's time frame? Are we talking about 70, 80 years ago? Are we talking about 30 years ago?
Like, what do you think it would be like in the perspective of your dad?
It was absolutely horrible. They could care less about the worker, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Could care less. The unions, when the unions came in, that was when they started getting safety regulations implemented into mining. So there was the coal company, all they wanted was money. They could care less. And that was my father talking. Back then, they knew they didn't care for them, but they were making so much money that they really didn't even care. I'm talking about later, not at the beginning of my father's career. He made nothing. Then when he moved out of the mining camp, he was making $5 a week, which was a lot of money, in the 40s.
Wow.
So for that area.
Did your dad ever talk about any of his coworkers or himself becoming injured as a result of unsafe mining practices?
they had enormous unsafe mining practices. Yeah, talk about slabs falling. There's a lot of back problems, black lung, of course. Back then, they didn't have no air movers to move any air, and there's a lot of methane gas, a lot of gas. They could smoke. They could still smoke in the coal mines when my dad worked in the coal mines.
Wow.
So that's how crazy and stupid some of these, and when they stopped smoking in the mines, he said you would see everybody, they would go off into these little caverns and these like little caves inside the mines and smoke. And that puts everybody at risk that was underground.
Did your dad ever suffer from any of these ailments?
Black lung. He had black lung. So he never got injured. He was lucky. So he was lucky he didn't get injured. Excuse me.
How do you think families around you or anybody that you knew coped with these mortalities?
Of the mines?
Yes.
There wasn't all the mortalities come from black lung cancer. That area was devastated by the black lung, So that was the last generation of, what we were talking about, great workers, family oriented, and all that left in the 80s, early 90s, all that left. And within 10 years, coal dried up pretty good back then. And within 10 years, when I was in school in the 90s, that was the start of the pill epidemic. And so it went from losing all the coal businesses. Regulations did crack down on them. A lot of coal mines closed. So what the coal industry left, and the drugs was come in right behind it, and it's devastated that area. Still, they've never bettered themselves. That area hasn't. So,
was there any form of compensation for workers that were injured in the mines?
There was. It depends. If you was a union miner, yeah, you got what you deserved. If you wasn't in a union and you was a company hand, you worked for the company, then no, there was very little workers' comp. Then the government come in and give everybody the black lung disability. And then everybody, even they were handing out black lung claims to people who hadn't even worked in mines. They just abused the system. And that's another drawback of all that area that has devastated that area.
Is there anything that you would like to tell me in regards to mining?
To mining? Not a whole lot. I don't know a whole lot about mining, coal mining. I just know what my dad talked about, how hard it was with a pickaxe, just like Minecraft, just chipping away. then you take a shovel, put it on a low cart or a belt if you was lucky and had a belt run through your area, and you shovel coal. My dad said he worked in a 36-inch coal seam for almost 2 years. That is 3 feet. That's what he worked in, 3 feet. And so imagine going to work at Sbarro's on your hands and knees, making pizzas, and 3 feet is all you had, all the area that you had to work for 2 years, almost 2 years. So,
How many hours at a time would your dad be down in the mines?
they worked. Now, when he went union, they had a set schedule of 5/12s. The mine worked 24 hours a day, off on Sundays. And they either worked 6 10-hour shifts or they worked 5 12-hour shifts. So 60 hours a week is what it was. But he said back in the mining camp when he first started, 12, 13 years old, they worked nonstop. Come home, eat dinner, take a nap, and then you go back to the mines. He said it was just constant work, like a slave camp is the way he described it. So.
Wow.
But that's what he had to do, he said.
Did religion play any part in the work ethic of your parents, or?
Yeah, my parents we were very, like I said, we went to church every single Sunday, Wednesday. I was like probably 14, 15 years old before I ever missed a day of church. And like I said, 1,500 people, there might have been 2,000 people, maybe a little more at that time. But 80% of them all went to church. There was, I am not lying, in Prestonsburg, there was probably 50 churches. I don't know about 50. There was at least 30 churches.
Yeah.
There was a church on every single corner.
There are a lot of churches down there.
There is, everybody was devout, they really, religion what brought the whole community, the whole community was always together. It just seemed like we were always outside doing something with the church, there was a picnic, a revival, something, somewhere, always. So, and I do feel they have gotten far away from the whole Appalachian community, from North Carolina to Pennsylvania. That's they used to be one of the highest religion group areas, and now they have had the largest decrease in I don't know, like in decreasing, and practicing religions of some sort. And you see crime go up, see drug use go up, you see broken marriages, broken homes. Church is, no matter what you believe, no matter if you believe in heaven or hell, it does not matter. The Bible is an excellent book for society and community to live by. They're always about forgiveness and everything. It is, and what I'm saying is, once the community got away from going to churches as much as they did, you see the rise in all the bad stats, crime, broken marriages, all of those is I think bad for society.
Do you feel like this lack of community and distrust of other people in contemporary times contribute to the lack of empathy? And
Yeah, I most certainly believe it is a lack of empathy, because you look at it as it is kind of, they have put themselves there. 99% of all homeless people are either, I don't know about 99, I can't say that, but it's a large percentage of are drug addicted and have mental issues. There's no, the United States has, I don't know, but just from what I see, it is such a poor, a poor effort to help the mentally ill. They do nothing for them at all, nothing. And the mental illness is drug induced. A lot of it is, especially with meth. Meth, for sure, in this area has made a lot of people crazy. And I've lived here, we've lived here, 15 years in Ashland? I never seen not one single person did I ever see walk up and down the street. Never seen a homeless person here. And then within the last 7-8 years, it's an explosion. It's all meth induced psychosis of all these people. They're crazy. So,
do you feel like it's worst in this Appalachian area, or have other places you traveled been just as bad?
Per capita, yeah, this is one of the worst areas. All the way, this whole area, Huntington, Ironton, Portsmouth, Ashland. Yes, it is. I feel it is, and it is becoming, the one thing that I see the most is the deterioration of the way the city looks. Now, they have done a lot with downtown this year, but the previous couple years, it was just getting real trashy, just dirty. When you got people on the corner, you got panhandlers on every single street corner in your town. It brings the aesthetic of the city way down. So,
Do you feel like pain medication, drug use contributed to today's drug epidemic as a result of being injured from work?
I believe there was a lot of people that really did get hurt. Now, there were minor injuries, but the doctors prescribing all these drugs to these young kids and young adults. Oxy was the number one prescriber, for talk about coal mines. That's what they got was oxys for back problems. Well, they advertise it as non-addictive. So these doctors were writing, no matter what, if you had a sprained ankle, they'd write you a prescription for oxys. And then before you know it, everybody's addicted. So it has destroyed this this area. After all the people, once these people get addicted, they don't care about anything other than getting their drugs. No matter who they are, they have no other feelings other than I gotta get my dope. So they rob you blind, you kick them out, they go to friends, they rob them blind, then they kick them out, and then you're homeless. You know, that's where, you know, not exactly in that order, but, you know, that's what it leads to. So.
Would you like to tell me about any experiences you've had working with other people, talking about your Appalachian experiences younger, or what it's like living here?
Ask it one more time. What is it?
I'm not very good at asking questions.
I'm your uncle. What's it matter?
But what have other people's reactions been? You working with people that are not Appalachian?
Right. The first thing they say when you tell them I'm from, they say, where are you from? You say, I'm from, Kentucky. They say, what part? You say, from Prestonsburg. You say, Eastern Kentucky. First thing they think is you've dated your cousin at least once or twice, and you are dumb. That's the two things that you get all the time. You're like, oh, you date your sister, or you married your cousin.
Do you feel like these stereotypes have been more prevalent in the past, or like they're more prevalent today?
I would say it's about equal, because everybody back then even made those jokes. We make those jokes about West Virginia. Kentucky makes those jokes about Tennessee. People in West Virginia make those jokes about Kentucky. People in Tennessee make those jokes about Kentucky and West Virginia. It's just the way that is. I don't know. That's a good thing to research, is where dating your family, why Appalachia has the stereotype of dating your family.
But that's interesting, because like old timers, like everybody knew each other's families. And so they were always keeping a record of who's your cousin, who's your great aunt, who's your sixth cousin removed. Yeah. And they just know all that stuff because they're all localized in one area.
Yeah. There's not much to choose from. That's really and truly what it sounds like. So, I don't know.
I feel like that they would know that that's their family and just not do that.
But if you're brought up to you were never taught not to date your cousins, you would not know it's wrong. I mean, you wouldn't not know, as the devil negative. You wouldn't know it was wrong. If you didn't know what you were doing was wrong and never was told it was wrong, then you wouldn't know. See what I'm saying? You would just be attracted by, either humor, looks, personality, whatever attracts you to somebody. You might be attracted to your cousin. If you didn't know that it was wrong, I'm talking about, then you wouldn't know you were doing something wrong. It's the way I look at it. You're talking about a small group of people. What we were talking about, how it why it began and what gave this area that stereotype of you date your cousin.
I'm not certain, but I don't think that stereotype holds true. Either.
That is one of the biggest stereotypes when I go to work on the pipeline. When anybody is from Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, those three states all get, oh, you date your cousin or you married your cousin.
Do you feel like this area has a greater predisposition for incestuous relationships as opposed to other parts of America? Or
Yeah,
about
because
the same?
like we were just talking about, I don't think they're told not to do it. As young, some of those people out in the sticks, they're not taught that it's wrong, so they don't know. So they just do what kids do, and it ends up, whether it's their cousin, I don't know, but I believe.
But do you feel like Appalachians as a whole are represented by this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think, I do believe that. That is, you're dumb and you have incestual relations with your family members. So, that's what I believe, because I hear it a lot.
But do you feel like that's an accurate representation?
No, I do not feel, no. There's not one single person that I know that has ever dated anybody in their family. Ever, not even remotely close to. So it's not even talked about amongst friends, Nobody, it's never brought up. That's the reason why I said I would like to know the origins of Appalachian area and having relations with their family members. What started it? Where did it come from? The origins. Because it's not true that of the group of people that I grew up with, or the group of people that I've always surrounded myself with, that is untrue.
Do you have any photos of your dad or artifacts or anything from your youth?
Yeah.
That I could borrow and put in my presentation?
I have, let's see. No, I don't have it. I don't have it here. I have it in Prestonsburg. I have quite a few, actually. I might have a knife here that you can take. I'll have to find it. I know, I'm pretty sure I got at least one knife.
Do you have any photos of your dad or mom on hand?
Yeah, not younger. Not like work. My mom has all those. I don't know. Sarah will have to look through her photos. I mean, I have them as older, with Ethan and Owen and Adeline. So.
Thank you for your interview, Uncle Thomas.
You're welcome, dear.
I'm sure to get a good grade.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Thank you.